Hi, this week we're going to start writing our first essay. Well, technically, you're going to start writing your first essay. And that can sound a little intimidating, but I don't want you to be nervous. After all, we're going to do multiple drafts. You'll write, get feedback, write, get feedback. First drafts don't have to be perfect. They just have to be written. You're essentially doing a they say, I say essay. One of our authors says X, I say Y. You have been practicing this for several weeks now, and you were pretty good at this. So now we're narrowing the focus. It might be Kelly Linfor learns this by doing this. I learned the same thing, only a different way. Or I learned the same thing in the same way. So you're thinking about how you can respond to one of these texts. Now, you've got to choose which one. Shelley Reed says, write about what you know about, what you care about, what's interesting to you. So maybe you see very clearly how you learned something similar. Or one of these texts is more interesting to you than another. It might even be that you learned something entirely different, but it's related in some way. You're going to be showing, not just telling. You're going to be telling a lot of stories, and you're going to adapt to your audience and purpose. Who's your audience? An interested audience who has not read the text that you read. That means you're going to have to create a lot of context and relevant summary in order to describe what the author says and why the author says it, and making sure that you have introduce the author's point, and your own story joins the conversation, but with your own experiences. Your essay will have a main idea, and that will be your thesis. Now, before you get started, you're probably going to want to do some brainstorming. What stories do you have that can illustrate the ideas? Put down as many as you can. And once you know that you have some good ideas, create an outline to help organize those ideas. Maybe just informally list the ideas in order in which you want to write them. Think about how they connect to the author that you're writing, because you're going to be connecting all the way through in your essay, not just mentioning them in the beginning and then telling your own story. No, this is an extended conversation. And then at some point, you're going to need to write a draft. Don't be surprised if your organizational pattern changes. Don't be surprised if you change your thesis. Do expect to write more than one draft. And don't worry about correctness. You can go back and finish that later. If you focus on getting all the sentences just right and all the words just right, you may not be able to write your paper. Remember, the most important thing is your ideas. Now, this week you're writing an introduction. What do introductions do? Well, they start by introducing your topic, engaging readers. You want to make them interested. They also provide some background information about the topic you're going to address. In this particular case, it would be introducing the text that you're writing about and providing a short summary, and then that leads to your I say. Make sure that your audience knows why this matters, and you're going to have your main point. So everything's going to flow from the topic at the beginning to the background information, the they say, the I say, and finally your thesis. That slide was out of order. Now I want to show you a sample essay that I'm writing that's on Canvas. So here we go. Here's my essay that I've been working on, Opening Minds and Expanding Worlds. You're going to note that I have a hook at the beginning. And what I'm doing at the beginning is I'm creating a general statement. Americans believe literacy, reading, and writing are keys to success in learning. But recently, many have begun to wonder what kind of learning is most valuable. Very general, just a common belief, a they say. After all, some kinds of knowledge seem incredibly practical and other kinds of knowledge or skills seem absolutely useless. After all, how many people actually need to know the elements of the periodic table, the reasons for the Civil War, or the mating habits of turtles? I want to know all these things, and so does my friend Callie Linfor, who shares an office with me at San Diego State, where we both teach writing. So you can see how I'm transitioning into introducing Callie Linfor. Background information. I never wondered why we felt compelled to know everything and share these things with other people until I read Joy of Survival, The Literacy of the Hillside Strangler, and Anything Extra We Know. I'm introducing the text. A narrative Callie wrote in Dialogues, a publication for writing teachers. I read in shock about how she learned about the Hillside Strangler in 1977 as a 5-year-old, along with the phrase ligature marks, how her mother and grandmother shared stories of rape and domestic violence, how she was terrified to walk alone to the library because she feared getting grabbed and put in a van, and how literacy, learning any context of knowledge that helps people navigate the real world, became survival for her. You can see I have a very short, concise summary of what Callie discussed. Not saying everything, I don't need to say everything. What I need to do is provide just enough, they say, to set up what I say. So here's what I say. I knew nothing about the real world in 1977. I spent my days at Aurora Central High School reading Baudelaire and Candide, and when I finished class, I changed into a bright orange and yellow Jack-in-the-Box uniform and brown polyester pants and flipped burgers and fried tacos in order to save for college. I wasn't afraid of anything, and literacy meant nothing more to me than reading and writing. See how I have summary, and then I have the direct I say. She learned this, she learned about rape and domestic violence. I learned about Baudelaire and Candide. She was afraid of getting pulled into a van. I wasn't afraid of anything. Literacy was survival for her. It was a lot of reading and writing for me. Compare and contrast. Now my thesis. However, over the years, I have come to agree with Linfor. Literacy must be more than reading books and memorizing data if we are to survive in the real world, for we cannot escape the realities of the real world by pretending they aren't there. And you would expect that that's what I'm going to talk about, how I didn't understand the real world. I pretended it wasn't there. And so you'll see I have a little bit about me. I go back to Callie and more about me, Callie, me, more about Callie. I'm going to go back and forth. So everything that I say is connected to what she says, which is a very, very important concept in a they say, I say essay, where I'm joining the conversation. Now, there are a lot of ways to introduce the topic. I had a very general statement that provides context or background for the topic, and then I went on to introduce the text, background information. Other things you can do. A short anecdote needs to be short. An epigraph, that's a quotation that sets the tone for the rest of the essay. It's generally not from the essay that you're responding to. A question, be careful, do not use second person. It can feel intrusive, so don't say things like, have you ever wondered, or have you ever thought about, or tell your reader to do something. Imagine you're doing this. Do not do that. You might have a startling fact or opinion. Now, you will have to introduce the text the first time. It's going to require that you have the title of the text, the author's name, a little bit about the author, and what the author writes about. So if I were introducing E. Shelley Reid, I would say, in 10 Ways to Think About Writing, Metaphoric Musings for College Writing Students, published in Writing Spaces, English professor E. Shelley Reid lists strategies for rhetorical writing to help readers learn to communicate clearly and to write for real audiences. Or if I were introducing what I found in Standing Rock, I might say, in what I found in Standing Rock, published in the Players Tribune, college basketball player Bronson Koenig describes his experiences at the Dakota Pipeline protests and realizes he has become a role model to Native American children, something he could have used when he was a child. Notice these two statements follow a very similar pattern, and it's a very similar pattern to what I use in the Callie Linford essay that I wrote. Now, be cautious about using a quotation from the text in your introduction. It takes a lot of time and space to create context and analysis, and remember, your imaginary audience has never read this text before, and so you can't assume they'll understand it. You want to keep this pretty concise. If you do decide to use a phrase from the text, keep it short. Just in general, I don't allow quotations longer than 3 printed lines anywhere in the essay. Now, that's all I've got to say. Don't worry about this. You're going to post it on the discussion board, and you're going to get some guided feedback from other students. It's a start, and that's all you need is a start. Have fun writing.